So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Rachel Higginbottom, who's co-founder at Peopleoo. So, Rachel, firstly, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, your business, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
No problem. Well, first and foremost, thank you very much for having me. It's a
Very
pleasure
welcome.
to be here. My name is Rachel Higginbottom. I'm co-founder of Peopleoo. We're a tech platform based in Sheffield. Our platform is designed in the most northern way you possibly can for people who care.
Brilliant.
It is a native app and online platform which is designed to support recognition of caring and people in caring roles, both paid and unpaid. It's designed to support care organisations, to support their staff teams, whether it be to gather daily recognition of them and create a community, bring together a community of carers and caring people or care enablers from all backgrounds and all journeys of care, because unfortunately, caring roles and responsibilities touch us all at some point in our lives generally, and there are a chronic under recognition of carers and what care offers society and the economy. So that's where it is, and that's what we do.
Wonderful. So perhaps looking back to start with, Rachel, if you tell us a bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you, because I can already see how passionate you are about it.
Yes. In terms of myself, my kind of background is in terms of professional career. I have worked in health and social care for probably more time than I'd like to admit these days, for about 15 years. And kind of operating care services, working in the caring community after my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and we kind of as a family business moved into the care space to try and offer something that we couldn't find as a family.
Right.
We were, one would say, a little traumatized by the challenges that it came with trying to find care that worked for us as that we wanted for our loved one. And we were quite shocked and disappointed. Obviously, it was quite a long time ago, and things absolutely have moved on in
Yeah.
the positive direction. But at the time, it was really quite difficult and troubling for us as a family, for my grandmother. And then we ended up doing it as a business, and that's one of the other hats I wear, let's say. And from that, running that business with family members, we kind of felt that there was a real gap. Certainly COVID, I think, compounded that for us.
Yeah.
It really demonstrated the lack of recognition of what carers do, what they offer. Yes, everyone claps for carers, and that was wonderful. That was a really great campaign. But for anyone that works in health and social care, it went away really quick.
Mm.
It disappeared very quickly, and more often than not, you see extremely negative news coverage about care homes, care services. Some of it, justifiably so. You can't always get things right, and there's a huge amount of lessons to be learned in care about improving practices and getting things right. And it is a learning curve every day when you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
But the recognition of what carers, and I mean, the frontline carers that get up every day, that might do a 12-hour shift, that are dealing with individuals who display, behaviours of distress in the community, and who, when it's snowing, when it's raining, when there's wind, weather, when it's terrible outside, they still walk to work, get to work,
Yeah.
find a way, and they do some absolutely incredible stuff. And I say that as somebody that is personally not what I would describe as a naturally, person that goes to deliver care. I could
Yeah.
never be a frontline carer myself,
Yeah.
but family members have. I've seen the amazing things that they've done. I've been on the
Yes.
other end of it, and I would describe myself as probably a care enabler, if that makes sense, as somebody
Yep.
who knows what good care looks like, knows how to support it, knows what it doesn't look like, and kind
Yeah.
of felt really troubled by, as a family member, not being able to find answers really easily, as a professional struggling to find that community, struggling to find that integrated space that that space where all settings are sharing best practice,
Yep.
all experts are sharing best practice between each other, that didn't feel political, didn't feel like there was too many different layers that came into it,
Yep.
and just purely it was a safe space, to ask the silly question, to find the right answer, to, like you do in, when you go and pick up kids from school, like, oh, have you thought about this? Oh, we're doing this for so and so. We
Yep.
have those conversations at work, those genuine conversations, and then you go, oh my God, you saved me. Like
Brilliant.
when you sent it to me, and that's the kind of space that Peopleoo is, but really fundamentally at the heart of it is about recognizing caring.
Right.
We talk about it a lot in our office, which is hashtag recognize caring, because it is at the
Yep.
heart of it fundamentally undervalued, under-recognized, and that
Yep.
comes from everywhere. Everyone knows it's an amazing thing to do, but not everybody, I think, really appreciates it and understands what the day-to-day can look like. So
Yeah, yes, but both my parents went through care before they passed, and I completely agree with everything you said.
yeah.
It's such a valuable thing that carers do, yet it is unfortunately quite undervalued for in many ways. And
I mean, the stats are horrendous. When you really look at the statistics of, at the moment, I think it's about 9% of the UK, of England and Wales, are people are in caring roles, if that makes sense.
yep,
And I think the stats estimate come out at some point in your life, 1/3 of the population is going to have caring responsibilities.
right,
And then you even get into the conversation of how much value does the unpaid carers offer the economy, and I think the current figure is something like 184 billion pounds, which is just shy of the annual cost of the NHS. So they really
wow,
do offer tremendous value
yep,
to not just society but the economy. And yet, it's really difficult to find a space, find answers, and connect and be seen.
yeah, wow. And so looking, okay, can still looking backwards. What are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in in your career and developing people who?
I think in my career, I think unfortunately, imposter syndrome is something that everybody I think struggles with, and I can't
Many
believe you've
people do.
not spoken to business leaders who've not said something similar. I'm sure. I think that from a professional point of view, absolutely.
Yeah.
From a Peopleoo point of view, or even any project that we've done, which is finding the answers, doing the research, sometimes makes you do a double take, question yourself
Yes.
repeatedly. And I think that's just it's a natural thing that you do, and that I'm kind of all right with it, because I think it challenges you as a business owner and a business leader to, are you doing the right thing? Double check,
Yeah.
rethink, reflect, but also go with your gut sometimes, because that's all you can do sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. That makes sense. And what would you think are some of the key tips you've got for growing a successful business? What are some of the things you've learned and that you could share with us?
I sometimes go with your gut.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hate
yeah.
to say it a lot. That is probably one of my is one of my biggest ones, which is sometimes your gut is telling you the right thing,
Yeah.
and that is the right to go. But also sometimes you make decisions and they're the right decisions at the right time, and you reflect back on it and look back at it and go, that was the wrong decision, but it wasn't, because it was the right decision at the time.
At the time.
And you've got, from any point of view, you have to go with what you think is
Yeah.
right, even if everybody in the room is saying no, it's wrong. And I've had that, everybody in the room saying no, it's wrong. And eventually you just make the decision, and kind of sometimes have to just go, well, bugger it, we're going to do it. So um
Absolutely. I remember, I found in my own experiences, sometimes, it's a luxury to be able to make all the decisions with all the information that you need. It's a luxury, especially in a fast growing business. So, the principles I had to adopt myself was make the decision I thought was the right one, and by my actions do my best to make it the right one, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
just got to go with it. And but yeah, it's interesting about your gut because I believe I believe this to be true, and I have no medical backing for it. But I think one thing I do believe is our subconscious is the most powerful supercomputer in the world. Our brains, but our subconscious brain as much, if not more, than our conscious brain, but our subconscious brain can't communicate directly with us. The way it communicates is through our gut. It's like
Mhm.
feelings, and that's what feelings are. It's just going, look, yeah, this is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do. So, although it sounds like, I really do believe it is our subconscious is going, yes, this is right, and
Yeah.
I think it's bang on. And I think you're aware of a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
I mean, I have to give credit to I wouldn't normally give them too much credit, but my parents,
Yes.
my father has been what I would describe as an entrepreneur his entire life.
Yep.
He worked and built business and, gave us the opportunities that we had and the skills that we had to believe in building businesses ourselves. And
Brilliant.
even to this day, probably has more confidence in himself and us than we do.
Brilliant.
And I can't really say anything other than we're extraordinarily grateful for his robust northern approach, let's go with. And my mum, she I think has taught myself and us as a family business the softer skills, the people
Yep.
management, how to talk to people. I've never known anybody be able to talk to people like my mum can. She
Brilliant.
can talk to people, get their life story, and learn so much from just talking to people. And it's an incredible skill that she has that hopefully
Brilliant.
I've managed to get some of. So.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And whether it's from your parents or other sources, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about business success, life in general, that you catch yourself using on a regular basis?
I think one of the things that I really like to say to the team is, let's take over the world. There is no ambition too great,
Yep. Brilliant.
and none too small. And I
Brilliant.
think, why think too small? Let's think big and see where we end up. And they do laugh at me, but they kind of, I think, get it at the same
Yep.
time, which is open your brain to what the possibilities are, and you just never know where you might end up.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Love it. And similarly, any favourite books or podcasts, books you read, podcasts you follow, that help
I'm
you?
do you know what? I am an eclectic person, so you might find me listening to a murder podcast on some occasions. And but I am a big fan of audiobooks, and I've got I listen to everything from I think what was I listening to the cabin number 10 I think I was listening to the other day, to I think some old school I think it was Hamnet I've recently downloaded. So
Ah,
I literally will go from anything to everything to J.K. Rowling, Robert Galbraith, you name it.
yeah.
I'll listen to it if it gives me some space and whilst I'm walking the dog. So
Brilliant. Love it. And still on the learning front, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Rachel?
I am terrible at work-life balance. Is 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 probably a really really honest answer. And that there's no, I don't think anybody that knows me would disagree with that. And yeah, I think that's probably it. To be perfectly honest, that's the and ask for help. And I'd love to say that I ask for help, but I probably don't. But those two things are something that I think you learn how to manage and learn how to reflect. And sometimes I think that just comes with growing up a little bit. To
Yeah.
be perfectly honest, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, it'd be interesting given the first point you made. So our definition in Action Coach, our definition of a true business is a commercial profitable enterprise that works without its owners.
Yes.
So it'd be good to know how you feel about that and how that may or may not relate to you.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably one of my other sayings that, what do you do if I get hit by a bus?
Yeah.
So my team laugh at me because I'm always like, right, okay, so what happens if you get hit by a bus? You know, I don't want you to. Please
No.
don't.
No.
Watch out for those buses. But I do repeatedly say to the team members, okay, so you know how to do this. Who else in the team knows how to do this?
Great.
Where is this written down? Where's the, and I don't mean a, you know, a really complicated local operating policy. I mean the really simple, this is how you do it, this is when you do it, and
Yeah.
this is who's responsible for it. You know, that is my, I would love to say that I am extraordinarily great, and the business can run entirely and utterly, it runs entirely and utterly on my shoulders, but it doesn't. You know, I've got an incredible team that I work with, some
Brilliant.
really trusted team members
Brilliant.
who we just couldn't do what we do without them. Really
Yeah.
couldn't.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, I always normally say that can work without you because one thing I always say is if you love what you do or parts of what you do, why would you not want to do it? But
Yeah,
I totally get that. I think it's as you rightly said, it's the ability to choose at any point of time, but more importantly, not to be a point of weakness in the business because if, as you said, if a bus knocks us over for whatever reason, or just a bout of illness, or just an extended holiday, somebody else needs to be able to do what we do.
yeah.
And that's really key. So looking to the future, Rachel, what does the future look like for you guys and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
The well, I would say it's exciting, but I suppose I would do.
Great.
It is. We've got some really exciting kind of features coming down the line that we're really excited to offer to users. We've got a growing user base. We've got some really exciting partnerships coming in 2026, and we're just really excited as a team for the platform to grow and for the community to grow and just to get out there and talk to more people about creating this space and taking on board user feedback and building it for the community, not just what we think they need.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So yeah, it's so important. It always takes me back to one of my business heroes is a guy called Sir Terry Matthews, which very few people have ever heard of. But he was the first Welsh billionaire, but he's
Okay.
very below the radar. He doesn't do any social media or anything at all. But we were lucky enough to get him to speak at a national event we had a few years back. And somebody said to him, what's your secret to business? And he said, well, I know it sounds a bit simple, but I asked my customers what they wanted and I got it for them.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, and it's very simplest form. That's all we need to do, isn't it? Is just find out because there's no point producing things for a market that doesn't need it. So asking your users what they need and what they want and what help them is wonderful. And just if you started the business again, Rachel, is there anything significant you do differently, do you think?
Um, I think on some days I sit there and say, would I do it?
Yes, that's a
Some
good start.
days. It is, you know, and that was a genuine conversation when we started, which is this a vanity project? Is this something
Right.
that should we be doing? And I think, you know, that's something you should always do, and that's a really important part of it, and I would always advocate for that for anybody that's thinking about running a business or setting
Yes.
up on their own, because it is hard work.
Yeah.
There's no airs or graces about it. It is hard work, and in the cold dark room with or without a gin and tonic, you're still the person that's there making the decision, and that's incredibly difficult. And I think that is a reality that if you've never run a business before, I absolutely
Yeah.
would say you always, when you're starting a new venture, new project, new anything, think about it before you do it,
Yeah.
as well as going with your gut. But I think if I was really to start the business again, I would always go with what happens if I get hit by a bus? And I know that sounds like a refrain again, but you know,
It's a,
you start down it, you know, how do you make sure that somebody else can continue it on, move it forward, has the same vision and kind of understands it. I think it was, you know, Apple, I think he'd kind of effectively done what I would describe as a brain dump about the future of the business. and where he saw devices developing, and people really understood what his vision was, and he was really, really clear about that. And I
Yeah.
think for any business, for any business leader to really understand what their roadmap is and see where that comes from for the next 10 years. And regrettably, I have thought that far down the line. And that's, I think, really important. So
Yeah.
I think probably doing an earlier kind of sketching out
Yes.
is important. But at the same time, if I'd done that, I think I probably would have gone, maybe not, maybe not today. So
Yeah. I mean, I think most organisations of business should have a understand their why. Why are we doing this? As you said earlier, if it helps us understand why we're getting out of bed every day.
yeah,
But the other thing is, and I know I've said to people I work with, and other people, is the 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 challenge with running a business is ultimately the book stops with us until maybe one day when somebody else, we can employ that will book stop for them. But the great thing about having a business is we get to choose exactly how it is, and that's
yeah,
that freedom that you really get from having your own business. Who we work with, how we work with them, how we work, what we do. And that's what makes it so great. I think of being able to run your own business, but it is a double-edged sword, as you rightly say. But I think the other thing, the great thing about having a clarity of the future is it does allow us to make better decisions now, because we know which way we're heading, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So, it just makes it easy to decide, is this decision taking me closer or further away from my goal? But if we don't have it, then it's difficult to make those decisions. And final question, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that, Rachel?
I would always say I sound like a repeater at this point. Go with your gut, really go with your gut. Whether
Brilliant.
it's deciding what to do when you're 17, applying for university, or all of those what seem like insurmountable life decisions. Sometimes better, and that's really, really worthwhile.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, you just take the next step.
Yeah.
That's what you kind of have to do. But don't be afraid of doing something because you've never done it before.
Yeah.
And just do it. That's the best thing you can do is just crack on.
Brilliant. Just crack on. And what you just said, I love, is don't be afraid of doing something just because you haven't done it before.
Yeah,
Cool one. Love that. Um, Rachel, it's been fascinating to talk to you today, and thank you so much for sharing a bit more about yourself and Peopleoo. And for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you or your business, what would be the best way of doing that?
You can find us online if you put in Peopleoo. There's no other Peopleoo out there at this point. So we are at www.peopleoocare.com. Obviously, you can download our app on for free on Google or Android. But you can find our details on the website. But happily reach out to myself or any of the team members with on socials or anything like that. We'd love to chat and love to work with people. So any feedback or comments or information is welcome.
Brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swim by another 6 to 12 months and just see what's the next stages of development and what's going on for you. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.